Okay guys, we're going to be working on Dad's 2013 GMC 2500HD today. I'm going to be getting the truck side mount for the Western plow that's going to go on this thing. These are the Western UltraMounts. I believe they fit 2011 to 2019 trucks. I think the 2020s they might have redesigned the frames, but don't quote me on that. I'm not sure about that. From reading the instructions, it looks like the air dam has to be trimmed off here and here. I think I'm just going to pull this lower air dam completely off, and then because the truck is so darn low, you start getting into a bunch of snow and it might grab a hold of it and rip that right off anyway. So I'm just going to pull that off, I think. Then I'll trim that lower air dam just pretty much straight down from the tow hooks, looks like. This is it's a bolt-on deal, but then they got you got to drill so many holes, 4 or 5 or 6 holes or something, which I kind of disappointed in that, because I would have liked to have just bolted this thing on. I know I've just on the older trucks they just bolt on. There's the mounts right there. So we got some hardware in the box, also got some instructions here. So I'm going to put this thing on the hoist to make it easier on me, so I ain't got to crawl underneath it. So I'm going to do that, and we'll continue on with the install. Alrighty guys, we are back. Got that lower air dam off. It's just got a bunch of bolts that hold it onto the lower plastic piece of the bumper. And then these ones I had to modify. These I had to switch them around. The threads were coming out and they were sticking down like this far. So I took them out, turned them around, added a wide washer here so they're not sticking down, so they won't catch something. So I got that. I actually took out the tow hooks too. They go back in. I gotta put my mounts up in there, and then you bolt the mounts up with the tow hook bolts. You leave the tow hooks in there. Pretty sure you leave the tow hooks in there. And then I'm going to have to add those other plates on the frame, the side of the frame, and that's when you drill. So probably going to pull off these front tires so I can get in there real easily and drill. I've got to trim this out, and I'll show you what I trim. I got to trim this off because you can't get the mounts up in there, and you can't hook your plow up either if you don't trim this out. So I got to trim that out. I'll show you what I do when I do that. I'm going to be using my Dremel with the trim bit. That's what I always cut plastic with. If you followed me on my Rangers or anything, the Dremel with that trim bit cuts plastic easily. So that's what I'm about to do right now. So I'm going to get that done. I will cut back and show you what I got. Well guys, rolling along here, and I've come to a problem. You can see I've got it trimmed out, and I don't like to trim this crazy big. I like to trim it as less as I can, just so it looks better. There's the piece right there. That was no problem trimming that up. Like I said, I used my Dremel with the trim bit, no problem. Problem I'm having is this hole right here that Western has in their mount will not line up with, when I push it all together, it will not line up, and I cannot get my tow hook bolted in because that hole right there is off. You can see I've tried to oblong it, with a grinder, and now my back hurts because I've had to install this thing like 15 times, and I'm frustrated and really aggravated. Okay guys, so I finally got this one to go in after a bunch of grinding and more drilling here to open this hole up. I'm hoping this is just a fluke and it's just the one that got messed up. I've got this one trimmed out right here. Gonna try to put it up there, and I'm hoping everything lines up. Like I said, hopefully that was just a fluke. Well, I got them both installed. And let me tell you, this side was just as bad as the other side. I'm going to throw up a picture just to show you how far off that hole is. Now, if I remember right, the mounts for my older trucks, this hole was kind of oval shaped. And I'm pretty sure it was oval shaped. And if this would have been oval shaped, it sure would have come in handy. I had to pretty much do it with a die grinder, and you can see this metal, it's not thin metal, so it took a while for me to elongate that. But this one went in a lot easier than the other one, but because I knew the problem and I was able to grind it down here on the ground and then put it up there, I mean it just bolted straight up once I elongated the hole. But I don't know guys, disappointed in Western for making that kind of a mistake, but seems to be more and more common that things like this are going to happen. I don't understand it. I gotta tweak my air dam. I'm going to do that when I hook the plow up. I gotta see what kind of clearances I need for the pins and everything like that. But like I said, I don't want to cut too much, and I want to leave as much as I can. But my back is done, so I'm going to continue this on tomorrow. So the next thing to install on this mount are these side plates. And the sway bar goes through these notches right here. Some of these holes need to be drilled out in the frame. I think these ones, maybe. I don't know, I'll show you once I get it. Then you got these funny looking bolts here. Or they're not funny looking bolts, but they got these flat stock welded to it. Now, because the frame is fully boxed, this is what you're going to need to be able to stick the bolt in the holes that you drill in the frame. So this ought to be interesting. So I'm going to get to working on that, and I'll show you what I get. Okay, so here's the plates on the driver's side. You see there's a bolt here, bolt here, bolt here. That bolts to the main mount there. There's also another bolt up here. There's a hole on the other side of the frame that you can get your nut onto. So you got a bolt up there, and then you're gonna have to drill these two holes right here. And well, I don't know, Western's got a weird directions. They say move it up as high as you can or something. What I did is I lined up these bolts here so I could get the steering box bolts. That's what these are. I just lined it up so I could get these out without having to unbolt this bracket. So I got the other side actually drilled out and bolted on. You see it's the same thing. You got bolts here, one up in there, and then I drilled these two holes out, and that's what those funny looking bolts with the flat stock welded on it. You got to stick them. You see there's one here sticking out. You got to stick them in there from the back side and then put your nut on there. What I did is there's a hole here and there's a hole up here in the frame. What I did is I lined it up here where it's going to be in, and then I put my bend at the hole there. You know what I mean? So I could stick this in there because it won't go in there straight. You got to bend it so you can stick it in the hole, bring it around, and stick it in. So that's and then you got to cut off your access so they don't interfere with the sway bar. Western's directions is saying like doing it after you get after you get the bolt installed, but I've been cutting them before I stick them in there. It makes it a little harder to get them in there because you got less stuff to hold on to, but you can still get it in there. So I trim mine off before I stick them in there, but you can do whatever you want. I'm using a 1/2-inch drill bit. I think they want you to drill, use a bigger drill bit, like a 17. I'm not sure, but they want you to do it bigger than a 1/2-inch. All I got is a 1/2-inch. Well, we got bigger ones, but I think it's even bigger, 9/16 or something like that. So I'm doing a 1/2-inch, and it seems to be working out all right. So I got to drill the other side, and oh yeah, there's one more you got to drill out up in here. Hopefully you guys can see. You got to drill out that little hole right there and put a little bolt on it on each side. I'm not sure what that little bolt's going to do, but there's the other side. They want you to drill that out. So I'm going to finish off this side. I'm going to drill those 2 holes. I'll drill those little holes under there. Install my bolts, torque them down. There's a torque chart in the Western instructions. It's like 75 or 80 foot-pounds for all these bolts. Okay, so this side I bent a little different. You see I kind of bent it like that. The other side I cut them off, and it was a little harder to get them in there. But this is going to work out good, I think, because you just kind of stick it in there, and then you got to position it so it comes through the hole, like so. And I think that's going to work out better because it'll be out of the way. And I guess if we ever have to mess with this again, we'll have a little handle there to grab a hold of it. But I'm just going to stick a bolt on that now. Well, that's a wrap for me, guys. Got her finished up. So much for the engineers making things more simple over the years. This is a pretty complex plow mount install. Especially the older ones that I've done, they just pretty much bolt on 3 bolts. Got my little bolts on there. Like I said, I'm not sure what those are doing, but the engineers must figure they need them. So I got it all done, tightened down, torqued down, bolted down. I gotta get this thing on the ground. I'm gonna grease this thing. I gotta rotate the driver's side tires before I drop this thing down. And I guess that's gonna do it, guys, for this one. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. And I'll see you.